Welcome back to another lesson of Logos and Letters. My name is Liam, and we're going to continue on with this lesson. And just as a mental note, I did say I'd bring back the ideas of homonyms, synonyms, and paronyms. Although I do remember I did mention the word paronym either in the last lesson or the lesson before, but I'll try to do that in this lesson just to show you how everything connects in this study. So at some point I'll bring those back up. We're going to finish off this big chunk here, okay, what we've been building on, but just a clarifying word on, things that we brought up and introduced for the very first time in the end of the last lesson. This idea of knowing, where we can draw the distinction is our senses and our reasoning, our rationale, our intellect, okay? We know that those are two different things. They're related, of course, they're deeply related, but they're two different things. If you blindfolded yourself and you touched a wooden table, okay, you'd probably figure out that it's a wooden table, right? By using your senses, your intellect would be able to figure it out, correct? If you put your hand in cold water, right, and then the cold water was in a bucket and you were blindfolded throughout this process, you would be able to figure out it's cold water, and then you would be able to figure out it's a plastic bucket or whatever, okay? Our senses can inform our mind. Our senses can sort of pick out the what of a thing, can they not? They can define and, well, not define, they can distinguish this from that. But it's our mind which puts all the pieces together and ties the ribbon on it, so to speak. So our senses, like for example our sight, can figure out that there is a primary substance, okay, figure out there's some individual and unique entity, all right, over there. It's our mind that puts all the pieces together and identifies and distinguishes that it is this person or that person, okay? If you had twins and one twin was slightly taller than the other twin, you would first figure out that there are two people, all right? That would be immediately present, and from your senses, right, as you get a better idea of them, you'd figure out, that's this twin and that twin, okay? The taller twin is called Thomas and the shorter twin is called Robert, okay? So you would have Robert and Thomas, and your senses could help you distinguish the two, because you're feeding predicates to your mind, okay? And that's sort of how the cognition works in modern day, in agreement with modern day science. But it's also an important distinguishing feature of how we define how we know things in this more ancient sort of text, okay? So obviously they didn't have the science of the nervous system and whatnot, and even a full understanding of how the brain operates, but they still distinguish correctly between the way we understand things through our senses and the way we understand things through our reasoning, all right, our cognition. So that's another word on that, but I won't go any further in that, because really there's an entire book that this philosopher wrote on it. There's huge parts that he will speak about in further books, but I'm thinking about his book De Anima, and when we get to that, we will have a whole book to go into his sort of cognitive science, and we'll compare that with modern cognitive science as well. Of course, we won't just ignore all modern advancements in knowledge. We will compare the two and see where it fits and where it doesn't fit. But let's continue on. We think we finished here. Hippokaitai garto aidos toigenai. So for the species, is said as being like, it's said as underlying the genus. Tamen gargene kataton aidon kategoraitai. And why do we say that? For the genus is predicated of the species, right? We predicate whale of humpback, okay? We predicate harpy of eagle, or eagle of harpy, you know what I mean? So every species, okay, gives the genus another opportunity to be known, right? The genus isn't some large pool that spits out different species. The genus is the group of those species, okay? It's the family of those species. If we get a picture of animals here, where's Noah and all these boat companions? Can't see Noah. Anyway, here we go. The genus here is animal, and all these different species are in the genus. But the genus only exists because the species exist. Okay, the genus only exists because the species exist. Without the species, if they were subtracted, if they were all extinct, the genus would be gone. Okay, and if there weren't any primary substance to populate those species, then the species wouldn't exist, and then the genus wouldn't exist. Okay, so the primary substance has, again, this most lordly, most exceptional role to play in all this. The primary substances exist. They are grouped into species according to essential features, essential aspects of their existence, things that they can't do without, their differentia. And then those species are grouped into different genera, okay, this genus and that genus, according to a definition. Okay, if you can move, sense, breathe, and you're alive, you're an animal. Okay, and all those species that fit that criteria are in the genus. All right, so it would be a homonym to say that the statue of David, or actually, do I have a picture of a statue? I swear I have a picture of a statue here somewhere. Yes, it's a homonym to say, hey, look at that girl standing over there, looking at the two doves. All right, that's a homonym. Why? Because this statue doesn't fit the definition of what it means to be a human being. All right, a young human being, a young female human being, which is a girl. Okay, it doesn't fit it. It's made of marble. Okay, or maybe it's made of some ceramic material, but I'm going to assume marble. Okay, it's made of marble, and being made of marble is definitely not doesn't even fit the broad definition of being an animal. Okay, to be an animal, you have to be what? Moving, breathing, living, and sensing. Okay, and marble does none of those things. So that's why it's a homonym, and that's why it complicates all further discussion of this quote unquote girl, because if the person doesn't know that it's a marble statue that they're talking of, they're going to start asking it questions only related to what an animal is and what a young female human being is. Okay, and if they start asking those questions, the conversation is derailed, because the person needs to clarify that they're actually speaking about a homonymous girl, which is actually a marble statue of a girl. Okay, even if you said hat, okay, being this is a marble image of an icon of a hat. Okay, it's not a real hat, so that complicates it. If you said I saw two birds in a beautiful pose today, right? Okay, even these aren't birds, because it doesn't even fit the definition of animal. So someone listening to that who doesn't know, who can't use their senses to see that it's a marble statue that you're speaking about, is hamstrung in their ability to follow the conversation properly. And that's why someone skillful with their language and deceitful will use homonyms all the time. Why? Because they're equivocating and they're getting away with things. But that's more of a lesson for rhetoric. Anyway, we'll continue on. Where are we? So, page 18. Here we are. All right. let's continue on. Tamen gargene kataton aidon kategoraitai. The genus is predicated of the species. Tadei aide kataton genon ug antistrafai. Hoste kai ektuton to aidos tu genos malon usia. Auton deton aidon hossome estigene uden malon heteron heterousia esti. Alright, so this is one complete thought that we're going to look at here. Alright, one complete thought starting from up here. At this part we're going to treat going all the way down to here. Alright, let's cover this first. Tamen gargene kataton aidon kategoraitai tada aidei kataton genon ug anti strefai. All right, let's treat this first before we move on. So, as you probably already know, as we've said before, the genus or the genera are predicated of the species. Okay, all the genera are predicated of the species. So if you have a species man, you predicate animal of man. Why? Because man is lower on the chain of predication. It's lower, okay? Here is the primary substance. Here is Napoleon, okay? And here is animal. Animal is here. All right. Sorry I wrote that A so poorly. Animal is here. Human being, you know, just on the chain of predication, we might say is here. All right. So you might even say mammal is here. And then human, and then some primary substance. Going down this chain of predication, we keep accumulating predicates, which pass all the way down to Napoleon. Okay, so Napoleon Bonaparte, and he contains all these things. We predicate animal of human. All right, we predicate this or that. It passes down its predicates down to human, and because this is a primary substance of human, all the predicates of human and animal are then passed down to Napoleon, okay? Dadeide kataton genon uk antistrefai. Doesn't go back towards, doesn't bear backwards. So ferai is like bearing or carrying, okay? Antistrefai, carrying backwards. So we say that if this is human, all right, this is the species human, it doesn't go back up to the genus, okay? It doesn't go back up to the genus of animal. So if you notice that all humans are bipedal, that doesn't mean all animals are bipedal. It just means that animals are capable of being bipedal, not they actually are, okay? They're potentially bipedal, but not actually bipedal, okay? It also means that if you think of mammals, which a human being is in, that family, you look at the monotremes, you look at a platypus is venomous. I'm not sure if males and females are both venomous, but one of them are. It doesn't mean that all mammals are venomous. I'm not venomous. I don't think any of you listening are venomous. Okay, if you are, seek medical attention immediately. There's something terribly wrong with you. All right, or you've got some superpower that I don't know about. Drop a comment in the comment section if you got a superpower where you're venomous. But continuing on, it just means that potentially all animals are. Potentially mammals are venomous. Okay, because this monotreme, this platypus is venomous. All right, so if some animal is hexapedal, or is a hexapod, I think is the better term, has 6 feet. Doesn't mean that all animals have 6 feet. I don't think you do. It just means that potentially animals, all right? So it doesn't strefai, doesn't go backwards. So if an animal is moving, living, breathing, then right, it carries down to the animal. Then Napoleon is moving, living, breathing. Okay, the moment he dies, he's no longer an animal because he doesn't fit the definition. He's not breathing, he's not living, he's not moving, he's not sensing. right? Corpses aren't animals. Corpses are corpses, right? And same with people who are dead. Their soul has separated from their body. That's not them anymore, okay? Which is a good thing. It means they're not suffering anymore when someone dies, all right? It'd be, if the soul was still in them and they were dead, that's like, that's hell. That is actually hell, all right? That's pretty much as close conceptually as hell as I can get without my imagination running rampant, okay? You're still suffering, and you're like, it doesn't even, it's hard for the mind to wrap around. So ukanti strefai up the chain of predication, right? But ferrai, right? Ferrai down the chain of predication. Alrighty. Let me get rid of this. If you like that, I'm sorry, but I'm just going to get rid of it because it's getting messy. Auton deton aidon hossa me esti gene uden malon heteron hetero usia estin. Alright, so another idea here. And this is the key. Auton, so of these species, hossa me esti gene uden malon heteron hetero usia estin. So here he's coming up with a good distinction of, he's bringing to an example that one is more substance than the other, isn't it? Which one is more substance than the other? Well, it's the species, because it's closer to primary substance, okay? But in the genus is less so. Why? Because it's up the chain of predication. Genus is up here, where the species is down here, okay? And it's down the chain of predication, okay, all the way down to the primary substance down here, right? This is closer, this species is closer to the primary substance than the genus. So that means, okay, that because it's more specific and this is broader, that's why the predicates don't go back up, okay? It's another reason why the predicates, so conceptually, if you want to think about it, that is why. Up here is broader, okay? I'm going to literally draw like a broader term, right? It's broader, it contains many different different kinds of things. And then down here is less broad, okay? Contains less, okay? When you get to the primary substance, it's just a little, it's a dot on a line, it's a point on a line, infinite amount of points on a line, and this is just one of the points, okay? So in short, this next sentence is having a look at this idea from the concept of what's closer to the primary substance. But let's wrap the bow on this. Uden malon heteron hetero usia estin uden gar oikaio teron apodosais kata tu tinos anthropu ton anthropon apodidos kata tu tinos hippu ton hippon. We've had a look at this idea before, all right? Apodosais, should one render an account, oikaio teron, more fitting, more proper, okay? For it is not more proper, should one give render an account according to some man, an account of his man, then translating this English is going to kill the lesson. But if you have a particular man and a horse, let me get a picture of a man and a horse. Man and a horse, man and camel will do. All right, I'm going to combine the last two sentences that we just looked at. This man is not more substance than this camel, and this camel is not more substance than this man. They're equally primary substances. They're equally primary substances. We'll get into that later. But for now, all primary substances are equally primary substances. All right. Now they're not more or less. They don't allow for comparison in that sense. Okay. Go back to what we just looked at. It is not more fitting okay, to give an account of this particular man as being a man than it is of this particular camel of being a camel. It's not more fitting the one or the other. Even if you know that human beings are, their role in the cosmos is more important, still doesn't mean that the camel, calling a camel is like is less of a fitting thing than calling a man a man. Let me repeat that. It's not the case that calling a camel is less fitting than calling a man. If you looked at a beetle on the road and it's like half dead, right? And it's just like sort of crawling around aimlessly on the dirt path on a hot day. You look at that beetle and you call it a beetle, and you think that wow, that's a beetle there. It looks like it's halfway dead. That is still equally primary substance as you, who is considering it. If you look at a worm, that worm is equally primary substance as yourself. All right, there is no comparison between primary substances, and we'll explain why soon. But just for now, take away this rule that there is no uden malon. One is not more substance than the other. Now, species is closer to primary substance, okay, as I was saying, than the genus. All right, that's further away. We've covered that in a lesson. However, if you look at another species, they're equal, right? They're sort of, doesn't matter what species it is, they're going to be equal. There's no comparison between them really. They're all on this same wavelength, if you will. So if you identify a donkey as a donkey, a man as a man, and a horse as a horse, that's on the same, it's on the same bar, it's on the same scale of reference. Okay, they're all and then you go to the actual example of them. Okay, say it was a horse. You call a horse, and then you find out it's Sergeant Reckless, okay, from the Korean War. And then you go to another species, you'd identify a man as a man, and then you find out that it was Alexander the Great. And then you go to another species, and it is a bird, it's a pigeon, and you call it cher ami, okay, that bird from World War One. All right, cher ami. They are all equally primary substance. Each of them are equally primary substance, and calling them, referring to them as a horse, as a man, as a bird, is all like an equal reference. There's no disparity. There's no favoritism. There's no bias. Okay, it's just all equal, all fine. No comparison. So if you take that away, you've taken away the most important thing from the lesson. Let's just wrap this up now. Get rid of this. Hoseltos de kaiton proton usion uden malon heteron heteru usia estin. So I just already explained that before. Just as there is no primary substance is more primary substance than another, because there is no comparison really. There's no comparison between them. Udengar malon hortis anthropos usia e hortis bus. Right. So he gives his own example. For some particular man is not more substance than some particular cow. Okay, and this particular man is not more substance than this particular camel, and this particular camel is not more substance than this particular man. All right, hope that is clear. You might think that this is superfluous knowledge. You might think that this is useless in a way, and it is just some pedantry. It is like, or it is just semantics. But it's not. It's going to be the basis for further rules. Okay, we're looking at we're defining a line, okay, as the point between two, the space between two lines. Okay, we're defining a figure. We're defining what is a rectangle right now. Okay, we're laying down the groundwork for all the more complicated things that come later. And this rule right here is not some hair splitting exercise that we're just going to do now and then leave. Believe me, this idea is going to be core to so much we're going to cover, not just further into the future, but quite soon as well. So keep this one in mind, that there's no comparison between substance. There's actually, we're going to find that there is another thing, right? Spoiler alert, it is quantity that has pretty much the exact same rule. Okay, so numbers have the same rule as substances. If you want to figure out why that's the case and real examples of that, stay tuned. And also, if you want proof, if you want an explanation of how this statement is true, then I can promise you that there are going to be lessons dedicated to that in the very near future. All right, he doesn't just claim something and then just leave it alone. So we will leave that there with that particular lesson, and we'll continue on later. And if you have any questions, feel free to leave the question in the comment section. It's not just me who might answer, other students may answer. I'm sure there are other, probably even professionals who have studied this stuff as maybe an undergrad or far in the past, or they teach this stuff. Maybe there are still some teachers out there who teach this stuff in this way. They might help you. Okay, I encourage that. The reason I'm bringing that up is I encourage it. If you are another student or another person making this journey and you see a question that you know the answer to, I encourage you to step in and provide some clarification for that person, because why not? I'm not the only one who knows this stuff. I guarantee you that there are many other people who know these things. So yeah, I'm nothing special. I'm just the one who's presenting it. So, sis semper fortis in opere tuo. My name is Liam. Thank you so much for your time today. Hope you have a wonderful day, and I will see you next time.